now reconvened in open session. We will now consider action on closed session items. First up, Mrs. James.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. I move to appoint Christopher Freeman to the position of Director of Accountability and Assessment.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. James and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Mrs. Tossan she's not available at this point, so please vote. Motion passes. Next, Mr. Rice, do you have a closed session item?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I move that the Board of Trustees accept the hearing officer's recommendation concerning the Level 3 grievance of Betty Davis.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. James. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes. Next are board member reports. First, we'll start with the activity report, Mr. Rosenthal.
Okay. In December, board members attended the TASB December board meeting, the GFGC, Grail, is that correct?
Go Public Gulf Coast.
That's a P. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I never did get a good grade in penmanship.
No,
My mother made me practice all summer long, every summer.
Apparently
and I
not
never
enough.
Gotten better, so
Not-
I became an engineer so I could write in all capitals, okay?
Okay, well, maybe you should do these from now on. Okay.
I'm not the board secretary, so I don't have to do it. Good luck, Dave.
Canvassing of the election, Fort Bend County Legislative Conference, Community-Based Accountability System Design Team Meeting, Furniture Fair, Policy Committee meetings, Kempner High School Academic Excellence Shack Meeting, Marshall High School Football Playoff Games, Go Buffs, Lakeview Elementary Spelling View, and Gulf Coast Area Association of School Board Executive Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. There's two things that were not added to that I'd like to add, and that was the Mission West Spark Park. And today I also went to Briargate for their Spark Park ribbon cutting. Both really, really great ceremonies. I had the opportunity to say a few words, and it's, parks are a great way to bring a community together, to get exercise. These parks are available for the community after hours. That's the wishes of the Spark Park. So hopefully we can continue our partnership and get some more in the future. So next is our TASB December 2018 board meeting report. Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. I did attend the TASB December board meeting, and one of the things that I am doing this year is chairing the TASB Legislative Committee, which I'm excited about because the 86th legislative session is about to begin. And in that capacity, I was invited to meet with Mr. Todd Williams. Mr. Williams is the founder of Commit, which is a not-for-profit agency that works with public education in the Dallas area. Mr. Williams was appointed by Governor Greg Abbott to participate in the Select Finance Committee, which has been charged with the responsibility of fixing public school finance. The governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House, Joe Strauss, got to appoint different people to the committee. Mr. Williams and this Select Finance Committee is divided into 3 subcommittees. Mr. Williams is chairing the Outcomes Committee on what educational outcomes are anticipated with correction to the funding formula. The Expenditures Subcommittee is being chaired by the current House Public Education Committee Chair, Dan Huberty. And the Revenues Committee is being chaired by the champion of truth, justice, and the American way, Senator Paul Bettencourt. And as yet, the committee's work is incomplete, But, and I received a lot of information from Mr. Bassett because they're identifying all different kinds of changes to the foundation school program funding formula. But I wish all of the folks were still here. Nothing's going to change until they find an alternative funding source. And that's going to be hard to do because in the last biennium, there was $6 billion of local property taxes that went to fund the state's portion of public education, and only $4.5 billion found its way back to public education. So until you find an alternative that can generate $6 billion of revenue, it's just a shell game. So we need to continue to work with our legislators and the public to help them understand what the real problem is. And this is really an issue because everything we do, we have great teachers here and great administrators that create great programs, but it costs money to do that. And without money, we're impotent. And also following up on Mrs. James's comment about our budget, we have to watch that budget like a hawk because like the Texas legislature, we can't pass a budget that's not in balance. So we either have to take it out of our fund balance, or we have to cut staff if we run out of fund balance. And I note that Mr. Bassett has included a modest 2% salary increase each year and what impact that has on the budget. So fixing school finance is really important. The presumed Speaker of the House, Dennis Bonnen, has announced that this will be the #1 issue that they're going to tackle. We'll see if they're able to do that. Other items are the TASB XG Summit, which is coming up, which we're attending. The TASB Legislative Conference will be on February 26th, where we will go up there and visit some of our legislators. The National School Boards Advocacy Institute is in January. And TASB is developing school finance training modules that are on the TASB website. So if the sleeping pills aren't working, that will. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. We appreciate your work. Next, we will be moving to review the future board meetings agenda items.
Yes, sir. In January, we'll be doing the TAPER report. That's the Texas Academic Performance Report. It's an annual report. And we'll also be doing an update on the Early Literacy Center and Early Intervention Academy, as well as updating you on high school boundaries. And then we'll also be seeking approval of elementary boundaries in January, as well as high school boundaries in February. There's a number of other updates coming in the spring, but that's the major stuff coming up in the next month or so.
All right. Thank you, sir. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Our meeting is now adjourned.